Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Not Another Nutrition Podcast, sponsored by Mac Nutrition Uni. I didn't prepare this again. Enrollment's open on the 13th of July. I've just done 3 stories explaining how Mac Nutrition Uni is probably, almost undeniably, the best sports nutrition qualification out there, although we don't market it in such a way. Lots of people ask for specific sports nutrition courses, but we have the entire module on performance nutrition, and all of the underpinning knowledge that comes in the 5 modules before that just makes it all kind of augments the learning in that sports nutrition module anyway. And even the fact that we cover some of the clinical stuff in the following module, like the eating disorders, really in-depth stuff there, which doesn't teach people to work with eating disorders because that's outside of our scope, but makes them abundantly aware of ways not to encourage disordered eating, ways to spot things, ways to be very interested with their questioning, inquisitive, to help bring some of those things out and hopefully be able to refer people. Anyway, so yes, I kind of said that I was going to keep reminding people about, and actually at the point of recording this, in maybe 7 days' time, we're releasing the prerequisite course for people who need a prerequisite for M&U this year on the 30th of May. Anyway, this podcast is a parenting podcast, non-nutrition related, but it does relate to nutrition in some ways. And I've really been umming and ahhing because some of the kind of tips and amazing things that I did with the children, and this is from talking to other amazing parents who had done parenting before me, and things I'd learnt, and a local parenting course I went on, and through discussions there, it was just fantastic. And then implemented, I can just see how they dramatically changed the way my children now are, and the way that parenting them is so much easier because I parented on purpose. And we actually had we had a meeting this morning, Sarah, Amy and I, going through some motivational interviewing resources that we're using with some of our students. And some of the stuff in there brought me back to stuff. There's something called self-determination theory. And lots of the underpinning stuff, I guess, in Mac Nutrition Uni, self-determination theory underpins a lot of the way that I guess we align ourselves with in terms of working with clients. So 3 core components are autonomy, so hopefully autonomy, competence, and they use this word relatedness, but I change it to belonging. So autonomy, hopefully you understand what it means by that, but people being able to almost be the steerer of their own ship. And then competence is a big one in that helping people, and what this does is when you have these 3 factors, it essentially is a huge part of people being able to change behavior and I guess maintain that behavior as well. And so competence, people actually, lots of the bad people in the industry don't really want people to be competent. I'm not calling Joe Wicks bad, so this is a separate point, but the way he practiced, he essentially gave people calorie counted nutrition plans, but didn't tell them that they were calorie counted, and then also publicly almost denounced calorie counting, calling it old school science, which is very disingenuous, I think. But didn't make people competent, and they were told they should only really eat carbohydrates after training, which again is not a good message. So within competence, there's also like this thing of, and I will get around to what this has to do with parenting in a minute, because it all relates, is I guess self-efficacy, the self-belief that you are able to achieve something. So there's something called perceived behavioral control, which I think I've spoken about in my podcast before actually, but basically believing that you're able to change the outcome of something, and that because if you don't believe that, often it's like, well, what's the point of me doing this? What's the point of me doing this diet, if you want to call it that, etc., etc. And then the belonging side of things is the thing that the slimming clubs tend to do well, is having some kind of social support network, having some sort of belonging to and this is why fads work well, because look at us, we're all keto, look at us, we're all, a kind of good one that I can get on board with is CrossFit. If it's not toxic, which a lot of CrossFit is, and definitely previously was, if it's not that, and a lot of the new age CrossFit, I'll call it, is much better. The community aspect is fantastic. You struggle to find some stronger communities than some of the CrossFit boxes. It's just when there's a toxic leader or a toxic underpinning thing of like, we must all eat this way, we must all do exactly this. Lots of the paleo stuff, lots of the cutting stuff out, lots of the clean eating, disordered eating practices that go on. That's not the great stuff. But anyway, onto the parenting stuff. Some of the self-determination theory about autonomy got me to thinking. And this weekend I was thinking about a few things I wanted to talk about with regards to parenting. But as I was saying earlier, I struggle because I don't want them to be like 3, 4, 5-minute podcasts. Doesn't suit me. I wouldn't sit well with me just releasing a podcast of that length. I feel like I used to be an hour-long talker, and I really have tried to go, you know what, I'm going to aim for 10 minutes, and I normally get under 30. I hope you agree. So one of the coolest things that we did with the babies in their early years, and I still do, and it works fantastically. It's so simple. So I don't mean this to come across as patronizing, but it was a game changer for me. There's this whole thing of, I know I did my last parenting podcast and it was kind of like, this is the initial one. I'll do a little overview chat. But I just want to say again, the whole concept or the whole premise, as I've always said to myself, is my child is a genius, right? And not babying your children. I've always spoken to the babies as adults. I've always, listened to them, respected them as adults. Adults is maybe the wrong way, but as an intelligent being. So people are like, oh, goo goo gaga, whatever. Like, I've always spoken to them as I would speak to someone who could understand me. And then progressing up, like there's videos of me talking to Orly when she's like 3 or 4, and we're talking about like the compartmentalization of her Peter Rabbit plate. And children often like to separate foods. It helps them. They don't like foods that touch each other or stews. Some children, they're brilliant, and if you feed them that from early, they get used to it. But it's very often for them to kind of see what the things are. They know what they're eating. It works better. And so I was like, oh, you could use your Peter Rabbit plate for compartmentalization, or you could use this plate because it's got, and whatever. It's quite funny. She's literally like using tongs to put chips onto the plate. It's a very basic situation. But anyway, so it's this whole thing of treating a child as a genius. And in another podcast, I want to talk about, discipline, but not punishments discipline, but teaching your children to be disciplined. But again, it might be a piecemeal podcast. I don't know. But in this one, I'm talking about, a tip, a trick. And the very, very simple message is options. Giving your children options. And what was fantastic for me in this situation is I was with other parents discussing this, and because I find lots of like motivational interviewing textbooks, they teach you the perfect scenario and they go, you do this and then the client says this and then you say this and then everything's fantastic and well done, you've managed to elicit their own motivations and they're no longer apathetic. And it's like, yeah, what if your client just goes, no, do one? And children do that. And it's very important to understand that I'm just telling you something, and rather than just fighting it, going, well, my child will never do that. Another big thing, I might just make a note of this, is short-term sacrifice for long-term gain. Because this is such a big one that I have done with the children. Sometimes you have to do, and that actually ties into the consequences thing. Some of these things aren't going to work straight away, but you just got to keep at them in the long term. But the earlier you can start, the better. Some of the parents on the parenting course I went on, they already had older children, and their kids were already screwed. Their behavior was horrific. And I just thought, geez, how are you going to pull this back? But, hopefully they did over the long term. It just take a lot longer. But this thing of options, this is it. This is the podcast over. This thing of options is as simple as, very often you'll say to a child, and those of you who have children will know this, those of you who don't, you guys are the ones hopefully I'm talking to. I love the fact that some of you who don't have children have said, when I do, I'd love to take parenting as seriously as you. I'd love to, just lovely things. People saying, I'd love to be a dad like you. Just all the lovely things that have been said. Options. So you go, for instance, even when you know what they want. Like there's some funny pages that I follow on Instagram that are just like kids pages, and it's like reasons my child was crying. I gave them a banana and they burst out crying. You peeled the banana. And then the next day you gave them a banana, it's not peeled. They burst out crying. You haven't peeled the banana. And like the next day it's like, you've not chopped it in pieces. Like they just don't know what they want sometimes. And this is why I've written down just a couple of words here: collaboration, no surprises, options, autonomy. Those are my words for this podcast. Giving your child autonomy. They don't necessarily have complete autonomy, but at least providing a level of autonomy so they can start to make decisions. So for instance, brushing teeth, that's a good one. So it's like, right, go brush your teeth. It's not that. It's like, okay, we're going to brush our teeth now. Do you want to use, and it can be, if teeth brushing is a difficult one, it's like, do you want to use the yellow toothbrush or do you want to use the red toothbrush? And again, there will always be the situation of, I don't want to brush my teeth, okay? I'll talk about that now. When that happens, and I will say that happens quite rarely, ever, with Orly and Arlo, because I endeavoured to do this from such a young age. And they all, they're just brilliant children. People say you're lucky, and I don't think I'm lucky. I think it's through really, really consistent parenting. And maybe an element of luck. I don't ever want to discount that. But, do you want to use this one or this one? So if they go neither, then you go, okay, well, it's teeth brushing time now. And we need to do this. We always do this. It's a discussion. It's treating them like an adult. Why don't you want to? I want to keep doing this. Okay, well, how about 1 more minute on your game and then we brush teeth because we do need to do it? Yes, great. So then you've given them a bit of power. And then we all know as parents, you go, okay, now it's time to stop. No, 1 more minute. And then it's a case of I'm literally thinking about my children. No, I said 1 more minute, please don't make this an issue. And then the iPad goes off. And then it's a case, so you didn't tell me which toothbrush, yellow or blue? Blue. They make the decision. They're the one choosing. Or for instance, one parent was like, okay, we need to go upstairs. Do you want to walk upstairs or do you want me to carry upstairs? Like, no, I don't want you to carry me. I'll walk. It's like, cool, I didn't want to carry you. Like, I always want to carry the babies. But you're giving them that option so they think they're the master of their destiny. For some of you, it might be like, this is so obvious. For me, it was like, this is really interesting. I'm going to try this. And it was fantastic. Every single time, I know which cup Orly wants and I know which cup Arlo wants. And actually, until this week, for the first time ever, because Arlo now loves Sonic. And he's always loved the Hulk and Wookiees. So he likes brown or green stuff. And I have one red cup one green cup and 1 blue cup. And Orly's always loved Elsa. But now Arlo wants a blue cup. So I'm going to have to sort that out. But anyway, every single time, which cup do you want? And Arlo always chooses the green cup. Or when we're at the office, he chooses the yellow cup. Whatever. Too much information. But you get my point. I give them that option. They choose it. I know Orly's always going to be happy with whatever, and then I swap it round. Orly, which cup do you want? She'll always choose the blue cup, etc. Do you want me to? So do you want me to carry you up the stairs, or do you want to walk up the stairs yourself? I don't want to go upstairs. Okay, we need to go upstairs. So you either pick, or Daddy's going to pick. So again, you're giving them autonomy. It's like, well, I get to choose, or he's going to choose. Well, I want to choose. Fine, I'll walk. That's like another instance of I'll do it. And it may not work the first time. It may not work the first 10 times, but it just keeps showing that you want to give them the autonomy to make the decision. And, okay, Daddy's going to make the decision and Daddy's going to choose to carry you up. And, there might even be kicking and screaming. I don't know. Like, fortunately for me, that's never been the case. But there's, that beyond that, there's also things of just like, this is another podcast that I've thought about doing, but in just terms of time. Whenever parents are just worrying about other adults and being late or whatever, you end up lashing out at your kids because we're going to be late. Who cares? Like, your kids are the most important thing. Who cares about grandma? Who cares about your friends? Your children are the most important people in the world. They should be, in my opinion. And it's always great to be on time, to respect other people. But, you can just send a quick text. We're going to be late. I'm really sorry. If they don't understand, stuff them. That's just the way I think you should parent, to have brilliant relationships with your children, which I feel like I have top 1% relationship with my children because of just little things like this. So, giving them autonomy, treating them like geniuses, collaboration. So in that instance of like sitting down on the bottom step, like, why don't you want to go upstairs, baby? What's the problem? I don't want to go to bed. Then you have the discussion about bedtime. There were some brilliant discussions about bedtime. So maybe I've actually forgotten loads of them because it's never been a big deal. But maybe I'll try and remember some of those. So options. Everything. Do you want to wear a jumper or do you want to wear a coat? It's just like it's not always one or the other. Like, you can give as many options. So they're like, what I'll finish with is, someone said to me, what do you do when your kids don't eat the dinner you made for them? And I can honestly say they have never not eaten their dinner. They've sometimes not finished it, which is absolutely fine, but they've never gone, I'm not eating that. But I think one of the biggest reasons for that is because it's a collaborative effort. Like, we discuss dinner before we have dinner. So they've picked it. They've sometimes helped plate it up. They've sometimes helped cook it. Whereas if it just comes as a bit of surprise, children aren't good with surprises. This is why it's cool talking about this stuff, because it reminds me, like, surprises. Children often don't do well with surprises, as in new information on the spot. Right, kids, we're leaving. Not great. Giving warnings. So I'll do another podcast on that. But yeah, options. I don't think there's much more I need to say on that. Supporting their autonomy. They are a genius. They're not. And I'll just say one more thing, that another premise of that they're a genius is not trying to control another human being. If you think you can control your children, which you can try to an extent, and you can enforce a like dictatorship on them, and you can shout and scream and use your power as a bigger, stronger individual, but that will fail eventually, and it will suck when it does, and there's no coming back from it, really. So that's why treating them as a genius, not trying to control them, making everything a collaborative effort. And it's just this thing of options. Okay, you're in bed. Do you want your light on or do you want it off? Even if you know what they normally want, or what just everything. Do you want this towel or do you want this towel? So not going, right, time to get out of the bath. It's just, right, get out of the bath. Or it's like, okay, we'll be getting out of the bath in 5 minutes. They're loving it in the bath. Okay, we're getting out in the bath 5 minutes. Okay, cool. Okay, 1 minute and then we'll get out. Cool. Then it's not get out of the bath now. It's, right, which towel would you like to use? This one or this one? The decision is no longer, are we getting out of the bath? The decision is, which of those towels do I prefer? Now, at some point, they might be like, I don't want to get out yet. And that's the discussion I said earlier. But it just changes it from, okay, it's kind of a given it's getting out. I was warned. They aren't doing these discussions consciously, but I was warned. I think I'm aware that we were about to get out, and actually today I'd like the blue towel rather than the white towel, or whatever. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed that. I hope some of you find it helpful. I feel like this is a slow burner. The testimonials of whether or not this worked are probably a slow burner, but someone's already said they implemented the it always sounds funny saying it, but the safe word podcast for play fighting and stuff like that. Someone already said they implemented it and worked amazingly. Like, I couldn't believe it when I got that message. It was so cool. Yeah. Please keep sending the feedback. It's I hope these are helpful to someone someday. That's, if it helps one or two people, cool. Doesn't need to be thousands. Until next time, much love.